Probably about 3 years ago, maybe. I was on this gig with my friend Daniel Seraph, and there was a musician there that he was billed fairly prominently on the gig, but it wasn't his gig. It was definitely advertised as a jam. And so we get there, we talk about what we're going to do because, I mean, that's what you do. A bunch of sidemen and whatever get together. And I'm used to playing with Daniel, and I'm not sure if my friend John Ray was there or not because it was a very interesting time. We were at High Rock Outfitters in Lexington, and it was a really cool gig. It was supposed to be a really cool gig, except this one musician, which I'm still not going to name because I don't think that matters for the story. He definitely not my tempoed me on stage. He started out a tune, and to be honest, I don't know if he didn't start it out quite at the tempo that he wanted, or I actually pushed or pulled a little bit on it. But he, in front of my musician friends in a town that I hang out in fairly regularly, literally not my tempoed me on stage, stopped the song, said not my tempo, and started the song again. And it was almost like, even though I was in my 30s and had been playing for a long time, it was almost like a class. Like, these aren't 3 or 4 professional musicians like getting together in a low pressure situation in a listening room and having fun. These were 3 musicians that knew how to play together and play with each other, and one person that strong-armed their energy into the session, embarrassed me personally and changed what should have been a positive situation into a negative situation for me, in a very awkward situation, not just for my bandmates, but for the audience, many of which know me, know my playing. And even if I did make a mistake or two, which who doesn't, who the is this person to call me out by name, which he just learned, on the bandstand on the only gig that we had ever done with no rehearsals and me not knowing his material. In jam situations, it has to be stressed that, especially when it comes to leadership, we are, as drummers, are expected many times to both lead and follow, which is strange. We have a kind of dual responsibility to the music, but also be assertive with directions so that we can provide a roadmap. And these are pop situations, right? We can provide a roadmap of dynamics and form through the structure of the song. At least that's the way that I see things. When somebody pays me, I try to give them exactly what they want. I'm playing in somebody's band with somebody's name on it, whatever. But not only was he specifically not paying me, it was my impression that he wasn't even the person that put the show together. So I'm not sure why I'm venting. I feel like somebody needs to hear this story because we're drummers, and most of the time you can feel like we get shoved in the back. There is a time and place for degrees of leadership. The extremes are complete freedom and complete like following every direction to the letter. Usually things fall in between. People that hire you, sometimes they'll hire you because they know you're playing and they know you and they want to see what you have to bring creatively to the table. Sometimes they hire you because they know that you are capable of playing exactly what they have in their head. There are certain things that I can't do well, and before I take that gig, because oftentimes I can't talk a band leader out of hiring me, because either they have a specific goal in mind that I don't have. There are sometimes I am convinced that other local musicians that have more experience in a style of music, they would do better. They would serve whatever song or whatever vision better than me. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not gonna turn down a gig that I'm actually interested in. That situation that I went through, that's not the way to communicate. That's not the way to communicate with fellow musicians. That's not the way to communicate with equals. That's not the way to communicate with human beings. I am not the best communicator. I try, I learn, I fail, and I learn again. I know there are things that sometimes I say because I have a reputation of being blunt, and so sometimes I have to check that because I am always concerned with my personal relationship with a person, especially when that is a bandmate or we have a general job to do. The better understanding that you have as individuals in a given situation, the easier it should be to work together. At least that's my view. But unfortunately, there are people that do not care about communicating. They don't care about communicating clearly, because sometimes when people communicate, they do so without addressing human beings, like you as a human being. This is probably the most apparent online in forums, which I don't really participate in, but comment sections, which I definitely read. And the drumming community is really, really awesome most of the time, because sometimes I just see at least an outward desire to learn and an outward expression of appreciation for other people's skills and other people's influence and encouragement. But every once in a while, I'll see someone blow up a comment section with something that you're just convinced they wouldn't say to your face, right? Oh, this person is overrated, that's sloppy. Not needless criticism, right? Because everybody is subject to their opinion. How we talk to each other seems to be the same, no matter if we're talking about politics, religion, drumming, whatever. We're right because we know better, and that person may have a different opinion, but they're wrong. And I could show you clearly why I'm right because X, right? And saying that, those words, imagine those words typed out. I am right, you are wrong, I can show you because X. And that is, in most cases, seen as an attack. I feel like because I talk the way that I talk, I can have a conversation with most people that are willing to lay like their personal feelings aside to talk about an issue. Even if we get loud, even if we get heated, even if we become adamant about our views, right? It's almost like you put gloves on, you're going into the ring, and at the end of it, you know, you are aware on some level it's just sport, it's just a game. Whether we have classical educations, bachelor's degrees or whatever, or if we're just reformed keyboard warriors, we can all learn something from being able to defend a point, but respect the other person enough to hear them, maybe not dismiss them outright. If a productive conversation can happen where both sides are heard, maybe no one is convinced, you should learn something from someone that thinks differently than you. Least of all, the point that there are such opinions out there. Sometimes we can have our small little cliques and our groups, and we could think, oh yeah, this thing is killing because X, and that's not killing because that was so 1995, right? That's showing my age. Or 1975 or 2000 whatever. Oh, that's just the gospel stuff that was happening back then. Or, oh man, that's just like that rock thing. That's just fast double bass. I promise you that if I played double bass 8 hours a day, that I could do that too. That doesn't take talent. Well, not only do I have words about talent that I will probably, you know what, let's go into it. Here is my armchair philosophy about talent. Talent may or may not exist. That sometimes has nothing to do with what a person chooses to do. Some people choose to do things because they think it's easy and fun. And because other people like say they should keep doing it, then they do it. They may find some fulfillment in it, whatever. I think my fingers just popped. I'm sure you guys can hear that. There are some people in this world that hate this sound and also the word moist. I don't think talent matters. I don't think the idea of talent matters. Try not to fall into the trap where you use the word talent as an excuse not to try to do something or achieve something. Because as soon as you say, I can't do that because I am not as talented as X, whether or not that person is as talented as you perceive, you are limiting yourself and your potential as a human being. That is the biggest problem that I've seen, and it's happened my whole life. It's happened. People will say that like I'm good at rhythm because I'm black, right? Which has its own problems, but it's also not right and not wrong. I grew up in the church. I grew up watching my dad, who plays organ, play with the band. I watched live music multiple times a week through church. Now, if black people, the majority of black people in the South go to church, and the majority of churches that have live music are black, you have more black children getting exposed to live music. Because you have more black children getting exposed to live music, you have more black children growing up to aspire to be live musicians, especially in the churches that give young, aspiring black musicians a chance to play. So if you grow up you're black and you grow up in the suburbs, most of you, the friends in your neighborhood, either A, don't go to church, or the ones that go to church may not have a similar experience because either they don't have music at all, which apparently is the case, or it's not the type of music that have live bands. They may just have an organist and they may read out of a hymnal. And trust me, there's some advantages to that too. I would have loved to learn how to sight sing as a child in church. The word talent can be misappropriated. I think most people say it's a natural edge, but I don't think it matters. So when you see that 11-year-old or that 9-year-old or that 7-year-old on the internet, think about these things. Do their parents play? How often do they see live music? How early did they get their hands on an instrument? Do they have people encouraging and nurturing that? If the answer is yes for you, and you still don't sound that way, you know, you have to kind of be honest. You have to be like, look, there are some people that are very visual learners with YouTube and so many visual platforms. Some people only need to look at what you're doing in order to get it. Other people need some sort of, I'm not completely in frame. Some people need more guidance. I definitely did. I am a book learner. When I can see the music and see how that relates to what I'm trying to do, things click for me more so than just watching a drummer. Now, watching a drummer for me is the missing piece because sometimes I'll know something, but then I'll see it being done in a way and I'll be like, oh, that was it all along. Because, you know, especially before all of this stuff, before there was a time where millions of 5-year-olds could go on YouTube and be exposed to the best musicians in the world in a time where their neuroplasticity is off the charts. I had to learn most of the time via a book and figure out what parts of the book or like rudiments are being played on the drums that I'm listening to. That was back when every group of 4 notes for me was a paradiddle. Every time I heard da 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 da, no matter what, I wanted to, because paradiddles were the only things like that were in groups of 4 that I knew. I swore to you that every time any type of drummer, punk, I listened to punk back then, gospel, rock, anytime someone did da 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 da, I just played a paradiddle, and that's what it was, and no one could tell me different because I knew, because that's what I was studying, right? I learned that was wrong. It was only because of my experience I was hearing certain patterns that weren't there. A lot of drummers will hear something like something that they know and assume that the way that they know it is the only way to do it. They'll hear got and got and got and got and remember that whole like that is not a triplet thing. Well, that's I think how that became a triplet. 3 notes, no matter what. Triplet. Da 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 da. I mean, that's a failure of language, or at least an appropriation of a term that can be confusing because it could mean two different things to two different people. But the tendency to see patterns where there aren't necessarily patterns is something called pareidolia. And let me tell you, there's a lot of that going on between the false positives or the patterns that we think we see that aren't there in music, to the things that lead us to seeing faces in planets, animals in clouds, conspiracy theories, you falsely thinking that your spouse or your partner is cheating on you, or any other trust issue. The list goes on, right? All of these things are sort of the same wiring. Now, once we learn how to properly hear patterns, or at least understand that patterns, because drums as a language, music as a language, is not representative to specific concepts. There is no way to play cow on the drum set and it be universally understood in a particular language. There's not vocabulary for that. There is vocabulary for genres of music, and the way that ways that those genres are put together and phrased and inflected. Like, you may get, at least in certain eras of metal, lots of double kick and accents in your fills, say, or specific placements of crashes and things like that, or the blast beat, for instance. Now that metal has grown, it's become way more nuanced, and you have some fusion elements in it too. You have subclassifications like gent and progressive metal and things like that. But every single genre has its own code, has its own syntax. And the faster you learn the rules to those genres of music, the easier it will be to communicate with your bandmates. And all of that stuff is basically, breaks down to patterns. That's why a lot of times when I listen to the gospel drummers play, and unfortunately I'm guilty of this too, like, I would love to spend 2 or 3 years and not do anything but play jazz. I feel like my playing overall would do it, but I definitely have my foundation in that type of thing. And that makes me a little bit better than the run-of-the-mill rock or gospel guy that approaches jazz for the first time. Because what they'll do is they'll listen to jazz and hear the patterns, right? They'll hear sheen, 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 and that's the first thing that you hear from a rock guy, gospel guy, funk guy, whatever, playing jazz. Sheen, sheen, the J, chick 2 and 4, and the bass drum's too loud, entirely too many accented notes with the snare drum. So worse yet, straight up patterns out of syncopation the whole time for jazz, not understanding like how comping works in the real world. You'll just hear ding 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 da 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 da, quiet right hand da 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 ding da 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 ding da ding. And so you're like, yeah, but no, because there's so many different elements to getting that jazz sound together, from the way it's dynamically approached to the density of like how much you comp, to, okay, yeah, that's cool because that's certainly a style, playing the constant ride cymbal, but breaking it up in a way that's also honoring that whole era of jazz too, and trying to make decisions based on the type of jazz that you're playing and what you're trying to say, which approach that you use. If you don't know any of those approaches, then every time you sit down and play jazz, you're gonna go in, shing, 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 da 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 doom. Sorry, that's so loud. My microphone is right here, right there. But patterns are extremely important, and learning new patterns is even more so if we want to grow as musicians. This finally leads me to where in the world I was going the whole time. How do we get new patterns to come out in our drumming? So this whole lesson, hopefully you got something out of me randomly talking into a camera, but here's the real stuff. The lesson is on pattern integration. So I'm gonna go ahead and move my chair just a touch. I liked the way that looked in the background, but I'm not centered. Pattern integration. Let's say you take a pattern that you've never seen before. And let's say for the sake of argument, it is left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, kick. Just off the top of my head. That's a new pattern for me. I got it from expanding a Gary Chafee pattern. I noticed that maybe about a couple of weeks ago, there was this Annika challenge where it was the paradiddle diddles in this specific 7-stroke or 7-note pattern, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, right, left, left. That's one of the 7-note patterns that's in the Gary Chafee books. You're gonna hear me preach about that a lot. And so I was like, okay, how can I make that pattern that's a 7-note pattern, a 9-note pattern? Luckily for me, I was already experimenting with an 8-note version of it because all I did was add a kick to it. All I did to make it a 9-note pattern is add a right at the end. So now my new pattern, or not the end because there's a bass drum at the end. So what we want is a bass drum at the end. So we're gonna put that right before that. Wow, that was weird. I talk to myself sometimes, sorry. Left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, kick. So how do I get that to come out in my playing? Well, the simple answer is to practice it, right? Obviously, in order to integrate it, you have to learn it first. Did I even demonstrate that pattern by itself? I'll add that in later. So you practice that pattern until you're blue in the face. The next thing that I like to do is I like to build phrases based on the new thing that I'm trying to assimilate. A good framework for building a phrase. First of all, let's talk about what I mean by phrasing. I'm going to use a 3-3-2 phrasing. The 3, 3, and 2 represent how many eighth notes go by, or how many quarter notes go by. It depends on how you break it up. So, for example, just in our heads, because hopefully we can do this. 2 different linear patterns: right, left, kick, kick, and right, left, kick, kick. The right, left, kick, kick is 6 notes long, right? In 16th notes, that is 3/8 notes. If you do that twice, that's another 3/8 notes. But then you have right, left, kick, kick, which is 2/8 notes, 3-3-2. Da 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 do do da 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 do do da da do do da 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 do do da do da do 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 da da do do. Right? We've all heard that type of phrasing before, even if we haven't really paid attention to it. That's a 3-3-2 phrasing. Da 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 da, right? That's a quick 3-2 phrasing, but it's the same thing. We're not going to do any of that. We're not going to do 16th notes or whatever. We're going to deal with quintuplets, because one thing I've never seen anyone address is how 3-3-2 phrasings work in quintuplets. That's the way I learned how to phrase, because once you get the patterns together, you can switch the phrasing around. So it doesn't have to be 3-3-2. It can be 2-3-3 and 3-2-3. Look at the Gary Chafee books again. There are tons of these formulas. I think he would call them 6-6-4 because that's the number of notes. When I'm dealing with these quintuplet patterns, at least the ones that I'm about to show you, I deal with the amount of quarter notes that are happening. So I have built a small list of patterns that address single beat quintuplet ideas, double beat quintuplet ideas, which we will combine a single and a double to make one of our 3s, and then a 3-note quintuplet idea consisting of the 9-note pattern that we know already, plus a 6-note pattern, hopefully that you've already encountered. I'm not learning any new 6-note patterns here. I am taking the 9-note pattern that I know, and I'm going back and forth between right, left, left, kick. That's the first one, I think. It's one of them. Right, left, kick, left, kick. So a 3-note pattern twice. And left, left, kick. There are a couple of trends that I like that you don't have to pay attention to, because you could use whatever pattern you want. Yes, they all end in a single kick. You can definitely do right, left, kick, kick, like I was saying earlier, but that's not what I did because I didn't want to. We're going to go through every single part individually as quintuplets. Then we're going to build the 3 phrases And then we're going to take the 3 phrases and build our 3-3-2 phrasing. So if I remember correctly, the patterns themselves are right, left, kick, left, right, left, kick, right, left, kick, right, left, right, left, kick, left, right, kick, left, right, left, right, kick, and the other ones. I play these in 3 tempos, 65 beats per minute, 85 beats per minute, and finally, clumsily at 125 beats per minute. Then I'll like do some note vomit stuff and then throw some quintuplet stuff at the end because it's whatever. It's extremely important for you to take your time. I have other videos that deal with quintuplets and how your perspective changes when you go into quintuplets, so I'm not going to address that here. If you need any more help, I do teach privately. Hit me up for Skype lessons or whatever if you want. Very soon I will probably have some things to actually sell, some real courses instead of these overviews. So if you like what I do and you want me to teach more and talk less, look forward to that. was a lot that I said earlier about communication, miscommunication, all that stuff. And I think for me, the end of the day is it's a healthy humility that I want to make sure that we get, especially through these times. But we should remember there was a time where we were wrong about something. There are positions that you used to hold that you no longer hold. That feeling is one of the most important things to hold on to, because being wrong is not the end of the world, and it's not as embarrassing as we tend to think, because we get so defensive about like our beliefs, that we believe that X style of music is better than Y, or X drummer is better than another drummer. Depending on what you mean by those things, you could be right or wrong. You could say that X drummer is better at whatever, and that might be true, right? Just for the fact that the other drummer may not be able to do that thing at all. My thing is to, whenever you are approached with information, you don't have to believe it, but you also shouldn't dismiss it outright because it doesn't agree with your experience. Because your experience as a musician holding the sticks in a way that does not actually support what you're trying to accomplish with said grip. Somebody may come and try to correct you, like, I wouldn't move your wrist that way if you're trying to accomplish X, because that grip is more for another thing. They may be right. Just because you feel more comfortable doing it doesn't mean that you couldn't be doing it better. Obviously, you have to be skeptical with me and whatever YouTube, Instagram, internet nonsense you see some guy with a camera and colors and sounds saying that you should do X. We're not home with you, so we can't make you do anything. Just because you see my face and hear my mouth doesn't mean that you should listen to me either. Ultimately, you have to make up your mind. So be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brains fall out. Stay safe. Try to vet your information. This is not just about drumming, obviously, especially with all of the health concerns. Don't touch your face as many times as I've touched my face in this video. Wash your hands. I hope to see you soon.